or even the like social media aspect of this, having this perfect holiday season because that's what we should do. Hopefully, out of anything from today's podcast, people just start to question a lot of those shoulds or a lot of those things that they just take as for granted that that's how it is, and maybe be able to do something a bit different this holiday season.
Hello and welcome. We're so glad you're tuning into the Taking Good Care show. I'm Dr. Andrew Wong, based in Toronto, Canada.
And I'm Dr. David St. Arno, based in Edmonton, Canada. We're two practicing psychologists with over a decade of experience each, working in a variety of settings and supporting diverse populations.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. While we're both practicing psychologists, our podcast is intended purely for educational and entertainment purposes. It's not a substitute for professional mental health care or treatment. If you're in need of support, we strongly encourage you to reach out to a licensed mental health professional in your area.
Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, Dave. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Pretty good. Was looking forward to today. I think this episode will resonate with a lot of folks, and just even, yeah, I think I'll jump right in because it's a question that I get so often. I haven't had it yet, but I'm just, anytime now, clients come in and they'll ask, or family or people that you meet, they're just like, are you ready for the holidays? And that's such a loaded question for so many people. And my response usually is like, well, I haven't missed them yet. Like, they come and they go, regardless of how ready I am. So,
well, we haven't missed them yet, but I think that's a valid question, right? Like, it can be a stressful time of the year. Maybe the holidays themselves aren't stressful, like once we actually get on break. But for me, it's the lead up. Like between Canadian Thanksgiving, which is in October, at least in Ontario, we don't have any other breaks until December. I think Alberta has Remembrance Day as a break,
yeah.
but we don't have anything out here. So the days get shorter. It's cold here. Yesterday was like blizzard-like conditions here. And I think everyone's mood just drops a little bit. And then on top of that, the holidays, there can be just a number of different stressors, whether it's financial stress, family stress, just preparation, getting the kids ready, thinking about schedules. So much happens during this month.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of buildup. There's a lot of stuff in the media. There's, you go to Costco and they're already putting the Christmas stuff out in November.
October.
Yeah, so these are reminders that like, oh, this thing's coming. And for some people, it's the best time of year, right? They look forward to this. They can't wait for it. They have all of these like things that they do, and it's a very special time. And those people, really are ready for this and they can't wait for it. But for so many other people, this is a time that they do not look forward to and they stress about as it gets closer. And I know we were talking off air, but I know at our office, we often talk about like how we get a lot busier at this time of year. There's a lot more people calling in that we haven't seen for a while. There's a lot of demand for support at this time of the year, both before the holidays and after the holidays. So I really want to, maybe kind of shine a light on this, because if you're feeling any of that, you're definitely not alone, even though a lot of people don't talk about it.
You're right. I think going back to your point about all the people who talk about the holidays coming up, whether you celebrate it or not, you're inundated with it. And then on top of that, your kids may start asking about it. And I think even with the way things are right now, at our office, we've noticed even people are clamping down on finances too, right? So it's sort of our economic state right now, and I think it can add on more stress as we talk about more people having to access food banks, right? That sort of shows the state of people's finances and the economy, and it's tough. It can be very tough.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I have clients that are running through my head, and things that they struggle with, like even the family get-togethers, right? So one of the things that I noticed during COVID, like it actually was nice for some people, right? Like the holidays rolled around and there was no, you actually were banned. You weren't allowed to get together at least this part of the country, at this part of the world. You know, it was during Christmas and maybe there was some exceptions. I can't remember if it was like you're allowed 5 people or something like that. But it
Yes.
really eliminated these big gatherings, whether they were work Christmas parties or whether they were, you know, family gatherings. And for some people, the relief that came with that, and then when things opened up again, it's like, oh no, we got to go back to what we were doing before.
All the travel, right? All the travel. I have clients who will tell me, like, how do I deal with this family member who I don't get along with?
Yeah.
Right? Or every time we get together, all we talk about is politics and everything will end up exploding, rather than having a nice family, relaxing time becomes a big argument amongst siblings or family members.
Yeah. Yeah, actually that you bring up politics, that's I was creating a bit of a skeleton in terms of like what are the challenges at this time of the year and like maybe some strategies or some tips that people can rely on. And one of them I put like limit substance use and limit politics. Like those two
Yeah.
things, especially together, are generally not pretty good. And figuring out ways to deflect or to change the topic kind of tactfully, right? When
Yep.
someone else brings it up or someone else is actually kind of trying to get a reaction out of you.
Yep.
Yeah. So even planning ahead in terms of like who's going to be there, what are the things that normally stress me out, and
Yep.
how can I, you know, stick handle those?
I was gonna say in a joking way, just don't go. But then I was like, actually, that is an option. That's always an option. Right? We just have to think
Absolutely.
about some of the pros and cons of that, obviously, but not going is an option.
Absolutely, because sometimes we get caught in these like, well, this is how it is, this is what we do. That like they become automatic expectations that we feel like we're trapped or we can't get out of. So I like asking that, like, oh, so you have to go to this thing? Well, yeah, I have to go to this thing. It's like,
Yeah.
what would happen if you didn't go? Right?
Yep.
It's like,
Yep.
well, you know, this person would be upset or my kids would be upset or like there's negative consequences, but it's like, oh, so it's like you wouldn't die. Like, you know, terrible things are not gonna happen to you if you don't go to this thing. If you got sick and were in the hospital and you missed it, it would be okay, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So then
Yeah.
starting there, we can start to go, okay, well then how much do you participate or how involved are you with this thing?
I heard two guys at the gym yesterday. I just overheard them during my cool down on the treadmill. And the two guys were talking, and one of them was saying that on a Thursday evening, they had two Christmas parties to go to. And yeah, the other gentleman was like, well, can you just not go to one of them? Right.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
or even in my mind, I was like, talk about overscheduling now, right? Like what for something that's supposed to be hopefully relaxing or maybe a little bit joyous, like it's gotten to the point of just like people overspending, overscheduling. And then by the end of the holidays, I know I've done this, where it's like, oh man, where did the holidays go? Like I took 2 weeks off, but it feels like I am no more relaxed than when this whole thing started. And now we're just tidying up, cleaning all the time, and that's it. Back to work.
Yeah, how much you try to pack in, or even the like social media aspect of this, that like trying to get the perfect Santa photo and the perfect, you know,
Oh
and
man.
yeah, having this perfect holiday season because that's what we should do. It's like hopefully out of anything from today's podcast, people just start to question a lot of those shoulds or a lot of those things that they just take as for granted that that's how it is and maybe be able to do something a bit different this holiday season.
And start to reflect about it, right? Like we don't have to make any changes now. I know we're into December and I'm sure many changes and many plans have already started, but at least reflect on it, right? Start to be a bit more mindful in terms of how are we feeling? Is it worth it? And be a little bit more intentional, perhaps in the upcoming holidays, whenever they are, or vacations, to think about, what is going to help me recoup? How do I recharge? How do I hit that reset button? one of the things in our parent group, in our chat, there's all these Santa photos, right? Like you said. And, some places will really like put on a show and all of that. And my kids are now 9 and 7. And, some parents are talking about it. And I just said, no, not this year. Like we're done with that. Like even just to get a spot here in Toronto, like just to book a spot, like people are waking up at, I don't know, 6, 7 in the morning just to book a spot for a Santa read along, Santa photo. I get it. Like it can be a really nice memory, maybe one time, but to do it every year, like that to me is more stressful, having to think about that and plan that and schedule that. I see you laughing, Dave. Maybe it's the same thing out in Edmonton, but here in Toronto, it's just nuts.
Oh, you just opened up this whole like memory file of racing to the mall. Like at the beginning, we were lining up, going in those big lines to get a Santa photo. Now we've like spent more money. We go to the West Edmonton Mall and pay like $60 for a couple of pictures, right? But you get to book a time. So you don't have to wait in the line. You show up at your time, you get in. So it's that way, it's a far better, especially for our kids. Like standing in line is not great in a mall where there's a ton of other things that they could run and go do, and we're chasing them around to try to do a Santa photo. Actually, I remember one year we had to change on the way. My wife and I had to take separate vehicles. We each had one of the kids with us. We were trying to get there for our time and get them to put on their nice clothes for the photo. And we were just super stressed and just hated every minute of it. Like it was not what you would. And then the picture turned out great, right? But the picture is not a reflection of the experience.
It's a
So,
reflection of that 1 millisecond in time.
oh man, like, oh geez, yeah, like so, but again, like learning from each year, we've done this a bit differently, and then we reevaluate. We say, do we want to do this year? And like, okay, like how do we want to do this? Where do we want to do this? A lot of pre-planning has to go into this to avoid those
Yeah.
really stressful times where you just feel like I'm never doing this again, or why do we do this? And then we end up fighting, and it
Yeah.
just, yeah, it's just not good.
Even from my own mental health, though, I know you talked about it from your children's perspective, but I'm somebody who really dislikes waiting in lines. Like Disney for me is just atrocious. So, like waiting in line for my own mental health is brutal. So when you talk about like, okay, yeah, getting the one spot, you take the photo and you're done. There's no like extracurriculars before and after, like just get it done and go. Like for me, that's perfect. But yeah, like we go to a place now, a mall where it's not that busy, and we know it's not that busy. It's not like one of the bigger malls, and we just do it there. Because for us, like it doesn't have to be fancy. A Santa photo is a Santa photo for that year. We figure our kids won't even remember where we did it.
You know what? You keep saying we, and that is something too, right? Like talking with your partner, if you have a partner, like co-parenting, like
Yes.
talking ahead of time about, maybe it's super special and really important to you to get that Santa photo because you've had a Santa photo from your childhood and you want to give this to your kids. But then you're
Yep.
in a relationship with someone who's like, that's a waste of money. That's a waste of time. I don't want to do this, right? Like, there's a
Yep.
lot of these things at this time of year that actually, even thinking about my own marriage relationship, that some of our biggest fights were around this time of year over the silliest things, like whether Santa gifts get wrapped or are unwrapped, right? So it can be a really emotional time tied to our childhood, tied to like what, yeah, our expectations for our kids. Yeah.
So communication is key. If you do have a partner, communicate, compromise if we need to, and just be able to see each other's perspectives. And hopefully we can meet in the middle, rather than seeing the black and white, try to see the gray together. And, if you do have young children, see what they need as well. To Dave's point, can they wait in lines, right? One of you might want the really fancy mall experience. But the other's thinking, you know what, but our kids they can't stand there for that long and they're not going to be sitting down for Santa, so is that a good idea? Can we meet somewhere in the middle? We'll still go to a Santa photo, maybe at the less fancy place. Is that okay? Right? We can still make it a day out of it, right? We can go for a meal somewhere, a nice meal. We can still get dressed up, but can we meet in the middle?
Yeah, and all of that communication and planning requires time. So, rushing or like Christmas Eve and you're deciding how the Santa gifts are going to be either wrapped or not wrapped,
Yeah.
and there's a time crunch, or you're heading to a family event and there's a time crunch. We don't communicate that well under those, stresses. So, that's why I'm hoping this episode we release this sooner than later so that it gives people a chance to have these conversations, laying in their bed or in the morning with a coffee and there's not a lot of other things they need to do. And okay, let's plan some of this out. And then of course your plans are you're going to have to improvise, but yeah, do this, have these conversations when you're not stressed.
And think about what you can do without, which leads me to a topic that perhaps, Dave, you might be able to speak a little bit more to. But with respect to substances, right? This is a time when there are so many Christmas parties, whether it's with work or family, and the drinks are flowing and people are becoming disinhibited, and other substances may arise. And for those who are in treatment or recovery, this can be a really tough time. So I'm just wondering if you have any wisdom to pass on with that population.
Well, with that population and with everyone, I wanted to I know we did an episode on boundaries a long time ago, but this, self-care and boundaries. So figuring out what your own personal limits are, what you're comfortable with, what you're not comfortable with, and giving yourself permission to voice that, especially with, the close people around you, to leave a party early, to not go to a party like you said, or there's a whole bunch of different ways, there's a whole bunch of different options to participate or not participate, and those should be crafted around you as your own preferences and your boundaries, and reinforcing that like it's good for you. If you don't have those boundaries, what's going to happen is you're going to be burnt out. You are going to be exhausted. You're going to probably have resentments after this. Like that's the cost of not having those boundaries. So I know it's hard to have those, and we can talk specifically about different ways to have those boundaries, but those will save you. Those will allow you to return back to work or back to life after the holidays a little bit more refreshed.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you talk about boundaries, a big piece of recommendation, I guess, that I pass on to my clients is communicate with people who are closest to you in that trusted network to plan, if we need to leave early, do you have my back?
Hmm.
Right? I'll give you a signal, when I need to go, so that if disagreements, arguments, or substances are starting to flow, there's a signal to say, okay, we need to get out of here. Right.
Yeah.
But pre-plan that with those who are closest to you. And I guess that brings up another point too, is this can be also a tough time for those who don't have the closest of social networks, whether it's family or perhaps, you've lost somebody during the year. And this is a time when a lot of memories will start to arise and surface as we look back on the year.
Oh, I definitely want to touch on that, but I want to kind of finish or spend a little more time with boundaries.
For sure.
We talked about like, avoid politics. So you can, change the subject or make a joke or something, but you could say directly, I don't want to talk about politics during our family time, or I'm uncomfortable with talking about politics. I'd rather talk about this, and be very direct, right? And so that could be a personal boundary for you. It's like,
Yeah.
no, this
Yeah.
is going to ruin my Christmas, and
Yeah.
either I'm going to say this and it'll change, or then I leave. I move to the next group of people, or and you were talking about even substance use, and maybe it's the people around you, but it could even be yourself. It could be your partner, it could be your adult children. Like And you might say, I'm going to give you a signal that I think, things are getting a bit out of hand and maybe we need to, reflect or have some self-awareness around this. And, this is what time I want to leave. And if you're not ready to leave, I will actually leave without you. Right. And that can seem kind of harsh, but it's like that might be the healthiest thing for you to do. It's like, I'm going to Uber home. I hope you come home soon, but like, I'm not staying longer than this, or I'm not staying when everybody is too drunk or too intoxicated. Like,
Yeah.
again, having these conversations ahead of time before the party.
And a big part of that is putting our pride aside. Because as you were speaking through that, Dave, I was thinking, okay, sometimes you will get that friend, family member, colleague who will provoke you, right? When you say, you know what, I don't want to talk about that, or I don't want to be involved in that. And they say, oh, what? Like, is this too good for you? Why are you being such a baby about it? Right. And I think this is where, we've got decisions to make, right? We can either engage or disengage.
Yeah.
And both decisions will have its consequences. But for me, it's advising like what is going to be the least detrimental to yourself and to the people around you in that moment.
Yeah, you're managing social pressures, right? And expectations and with boundaries, we've talked about this, like fear and guilt are two huge things, shame that can kind of push our boundaries. So I'll just give like a family example. In our family, like a lot of the men are like having drinks and a lot of the women end up driving home. So like stereotypical, but like, the end of the night is coming and you can see people are starting to go home. So what do, the peer pressure side of it of like grown adults, they'll just go and fill someone a drink up. Right. Oh, you can't leave. I just made you a drink. Right. And then it's like, oh, I'll just stay for one more. And then it's like, oh, just one more. And like a lot of that can be fun and well-meaning but if people feel pressured and they don't feel like they can say no or they can't leave when they want to, or then it creates, relationship issues because they promised their partner they would leave at a certain time or that they would get home for the kids or something like that. These things, I'm sure there's going to be listeners going like, "Oh yeah, like in different flavors that happens, right? The pressure."
I think I've gotten better with that as I've gotten older. Just creating those boundaries and not feeling bad if I don't have that last drink. Thanks for pouring it, but I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the past, I probably would have succumbed to that pressure and said, okay, yeah, I'll finish this drink but not anymore.
Yeah, so even just like a mental experiment with all
Yeah.
of this is like if you had a magic wand and you could craft the perfect holiday season, right? What events you went to, how those events went, who you're with, all of this. Just like let yourself kind of think about that, enjoy it, and just like craft it out. Like what would you see? What would you be doing? Like really spend some time kind of making it really vivid and tangible.
Ask your kids too. Ask your kids too. Like as we reflect about it, you can turn this into like a whole family conversation,
Hmm. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, the
It can
magic
be
wand
fun.
thing, kids love that, right? And
Yeah.
and so it gives them freedom to just say what they feel and what they'd like. And then, for the adults out there, so even write some of this out, right? Like
Yeah.
look at the calendar and put some of this in the calendar as like my ideal holiday season this year. And then look at what the reality is and
Hmm.
and compare your ideal with what likely is going to happen. And the more diverse those two are, the more stress you're likely going to be experiencing, right? The more pressure
Yeah.
that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And then you can go, okay, how do I plan for this?
Yeah. And the last piece I'll say about like the family gatherings is, I know that some families really like to make it a big party, invite everybody and have games and everything, like the whole shebang for the entire day. Again, I think communication is key. If this year, let's say it's been a long year, maybe you are tired and haven't had time to recharge, again, maybe it's just coming together and talking to the hosts, talking to the extended family and say, hey, you know what? We might just come for half the day. Or you know what? Do we need all the activities this year? I know that it's always been a tradition, but what if we just kept it more low key? If you're feeling this way, I get the sense that others may be feeling the same too.
Sure. And in an ideal world, everyone can just express their feelings and we come up with, what are we all going to do together or not do together? In reality, a lot of times people don't express their feelings. They hold it in. They might even be kind of self-critical and tell themselves like, well, everyone else likes this. I should like this too. But being able to be clear about yourself, even just think about the next activity or the next thing that you're going to be doing on the holidays, and what are the things about it that stress you out,
Yep.
right? What are the
Yep.
hard parts about it?
Yep.
And then,
Exactly.
yeah, being able to go, okay, I'm actually quite introverted. Like, I don't like big social gatherings, right? So,
Yeah.
how can I go to this thing and then for me, it's sometimes taking bathroom breaks when I don't really need to use the bathroom, or like hanging out with a couple people that I'm closer to, that the conversation is not just superficial, right? And so there's different ways to navigate these hard things. And
Yep.
then there's a lot of great things about these things too. We're just not focusing on them today.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I'll sometimes even I'll just remove myself and go to my kids and be like, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" Like
Yeah.
talking about those superficial conversations that I might not be so keen on after I repeated myself like 5 times, right? I might just go to my kids and like, "What are you guys doing down here?" Right? And just take a little bit of a mental break.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, there are a lot of positives to it as well. There's reconnection, there's just a celebration of the things that have occurred during the year. And yeah, it's bonding with people who you might not see so often.
Yeah, and even just
Yeah.
like those traditions, right? There's these traditions that happen year after year, and for some people, those traditions, they look forward to them. They're
Yep.
things that they like doing, but for other people, they go along with it because it's tradition and they don't
Hmm.
think there's an option to do something different.
Yep.
So even that, just kind of like maybe this year you create some new traditions, at least for
Yep.
your immediate family or for yourself,
Yep.
right?
And speaking of which, creating new traditions, to the point I made earlier about, looking back at the year about loss and grief, sometimes this is a signal too for new traditions.
Yeah.
Right? When we may have had a significant loss, it can be a time to reflect. It's a time to get together and perhaps reminisce about some memories. That's always healthy. A lot of people, I think we talked about this in our grief and loss episode, they may avoid the memories, but we know even from research, like talking about it, looking at old photographs, commiserating with friends and family can be a really positive experience. And this might be that time to do it.
Yeah, making space for both like the joy and the happiness and the connections that are right around you and the loss, right? So
Yep.
often I'm thinking like, what's the same and what's different, right? And with everything. And so looking at even like a family event from that same lens of what's the same and what's different, you recognize that every year there's a little bit of something different, right? It's not all the same. So then that opens the door up to being like, well, could we do something a bit more different, right? Like, could we do a potluck instead of having one person make all the food for the event?
Yes.
They're just
Yep.
little things. But going back to the grief and loss, this is going to be maybe the first time for a lot of people, the first Christmas or the first holiday season.
Hmm.
And those firsts are really hard, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
making space for that, that you might bow out of some events because they're just going to be too difficult and you'd
Yes.
rather stay home. You'd
Yes.
rather do something else this year, and that's okay.
Yep. Yep. So that's why I think for any listeners who, if you know somebody has experienced a significant loss, check in with your friend or family member just to see what they're up to during the holiday season and really listen to what it is that they need, right? In your mind, you might think, "Oh, let's get them out. Let's go to this bar or let's go to this dinner or party. It'll do you some good." But also really listen to what they need because they might say, "You know what? I just want to keep things low key this year." Now,
Mm-hmm.
you might think it's better to take them out, but maybe then again we can come to a little bit of that gray area and say, hey, you know what? Do you want me to come over? We'll just keep things low key. We'll get takeout and we'll just hang out, just the two of us, or just like a really small group of us,
Mm-hmm.
and really listen for what they need.
Yeah, and just simply like, how are you doing? How are you really
Exactly.
doing? Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, even with thinking back to the grief episode and talking about grief, like anger is a big part of grief, right?
Yeah.
You might actually go to this next event or see a bunch of families or see people, and it just brings up this anger that like it's not fair. Like why did this happen? And why do other people like have it so easy or like all of that? And that's part of grief. And if you're around other people and they're not in the same headspace, like it can be hard.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
And this is where again we can keep things time limited, right? We can, at least in the moment, with the others, keep the discussion of the loss to a minimum. But then on your own time or with your nuclear family, you can still reflect and look at the memories and, do it as a smaller group. It doesn't have to be done at a party or a big event.
Hmm. Yeah, it could be done privately and it could be done publicly. And I think actually just thinking of my family gatherings and on my dad's side, the French side, my papa he used to say the prayer before supper.
Right.
And the prayer would involve to some degree like thank you to those who prepared this meal and for everyone that's here and remembering those that are no longer with us. Right. And so that can be just a little opening to be like, oh yeah, right?
Yeah,
Let's acknowledge that there are people that are not with us anymore or that we're missing or
absolutely.
that we're, yeah.
Yeah. That's really something to keep in mind. Life happens throughout the year and we just have to keep that in mind for everybody around us. It actually reminds me, my eldest aunt on my mom's side of the family, my uncle passed away this year. So it makes me to make sure I check in with my mom, to check in with my aunt, to
Hmm.
see what she would like to do this year. So yeah.
Like it could be grief of someone that you've lost, but it could be like anticipatory grief. So someone is sick and it's possibly their last
Mm,
holiday season with the family,
mm.
right? And yeah.
And so, again, like, what do we want to do with that? Right. And checking in with the family and to communicate what everybody needs. The last piece I did want to touch on too, because I work with this population quite a bit, is the neurodiverse population, as well as those who struggle with social anxiety. There's this big expectation a lot of the time, that we have to go to all these family gatherings. You know what? They're talking about anticipatory issues, the noise level, the amount of people, and having to face all these people that, with the autism population, that becomes overwhelming. With the
Mm-hmm.
social anxiety population, it becomes overwhelming. So it's just again reminding people that, hey, if somebody disappears for a little bit, maybe that's what they need. I hear this all the time from parents. It's like my son or daughter, they'll be there for like the first 5 minutes and then they're gone for the next 2 hours. Like they're just in the basement or in their room, just hiding away what's going on. Again, I think before these big family gatherings, have a chat, right? Have that signal to say, hey, I need a break right now. It's been 15 minutes of just loud, boisterous activity. That's not my thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to go take a break for 30 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, and the schools are getting better at this, and a lot of like even hospitals. But our family gatherings or our kind of social gatherings, they're really designed around neurotypical, folks. So to be able to have even a quiet room in the house that's designated for any kids that are overwhelmed or any adults that are
Oh my
overwhelmed,
gosh,
right?
adults.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, just to kind of, make space and think about that in terms of accommodating the different kinds of people at instead of everyone expected to do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, there's no limit. Like a kid could be wearing headphones, right? Noise canceling headphones or different accommodations that might be like, well, that's weird. We don't do that here, but it's like actually this is what my kid needs or this is what
Yeah.
I need to
Yeah.
be comfortable and
Yeah.
and yeah.
And I get parents too who will say, well, it seems like they're so unfriendly, they may not say hi and they're just like leaving the party. It's like, well, again, I think preparation is so critical. So perhaps setting the expectation, hey, when our guests come, please say hi, do your usual greeting, ask them how they're doing, maybe give one nugget of information about yourself from the year. And if you've done all of that and you've done that with a few people already, yeah, you know what? Go take a break. And mom and dad will come get you perhaps, after 20 minutes or so and see how you're doing.
We could do a whole episode on accommodating neurodiversity in, social gatherings or family gatherings or holiday season. We could keep,
Hmm.
once you start looking at it, like, we didn't even talk about food. We didn't talk about, like, whether it's indoor or outdoor. Like, there's so many things that, again, from a neurotypical perspective, kind of take for granted, right?
Yes.
Just
Yes.
yeah, like you said, the brightness of the lights, the sound level, like those things.
Yeah. Games that people might want to play and they're like, no, I don't want to play this. And then they get a bad rap for thinking like, oh, so and so is just uncooperative or, they're a negative Nancy. And it's just like,
Mhm.
no, like there's more to that story.
Yeah, people can get offended, right? They
Yep.
put a lot of effort into this. They thought about like what, and then someone doesn't want to do it. It's like, oh, so they could be upset. And then it's like, well, hold up. You know,
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
we're just starting to get there where people have a better understanding and awareness of these things, that it's not rude, it's not disrespectful, it's actually
Yeah.
like accommodating their needs.
You know what it is, as we're talking about it, Dave? It's like unmet expectations. Like everybody has different expectations, but when we don't communicate those expectations, they go unmet and then people get upset.
Yes, and then we have alcohol and we can hear all the upset stuff come out at the end of the night, right? We could spend more time on this, and there's tons of stuff on the internet now, and being able to look, you know, this stuff up. But I think you brought up loneliness, right? And this time of year, and we've been talking a lot about social gatherings and families and stuff, but there are a lot of folks out there that will not be with people during this time,
Hmm.
and not by choice, right?
Hmm.
And that
Hmm.
is a really painful experience, and one that, we want people to, be validated and be, reach out and try as best they can to cope with
Yep,
this time of year that can be really difficult.
absolutely. I think in these situations too, it's mentally preparing for what the situation might be. If you don't have family or a very, very small social network, or perhaps one that right now is non-existent, it's knowing what it is that brings comfort to you.
And I think, sometimes your preference would be to be with the people you love, or to have be invited to more events or gatherings, right? And you're not being invited, or you're actually being left off some of these events. You went to them last year and now you haven't been invited this year. So you're, validating that this is your first choice. You would want this, and it hurts
Hmm.
to not have it. But
Hmm.
having a plan B that's like, what else in my life is meaningful? What else brings me joy? So if I
Yep.
can't do plan A, how do I do plan B? Right?
Yep.
And doing activities, or even keeping busy, or doing something else that, brings you fulfillment and meaning in your life when you can't do the things with other people.
Yep. Absolutely. As I'm just sort of reflecting on that, I think if I was in that situation, like I think maybe this is why they also keep movie theaters open during the holidays and on Christmas. I would go catch a movie. Right? And that would bring me comfort, being able to get out, see a movie and enjoy that as much as I can.
I would clean some of my junk drawers that have been piling up. And, it might seem kind of ridiculous, but it's like, actually, I'll feel better, starting the next year with, some of these things done. And of course, I wouldn't want to do this during the holiday break. I'd rather do something else, but this is what I can do. This is what my
Yeah.
options are. And this is probably the best thing for me, rather than, you know, using substances or trying to numb this pain that comes with loneliness.
No, absolutely. It's a very interesting time of the year. I think for many people, whether it is stressful, joyous, excitement, or, anxious time of the year, frustrating time of the year, there's just so much that goes on for different people. I know for me personally, this can be a little bit stressful. Just getting everything ready, getting work ready before I take off for a couple of weeks and not hopefully think about work too much. But then also planning for different gatherings. I want to see friends, but yeah, it's it seems like the norm right now, but perhaps we can change that in due time.
Yeah, and it actually reminds me of just off air when we were chatting to before we started recording that, the expectations of the financial stress, the asks from the children, right? And I was talking about my son who's asking for a really expensive gift from Santa, and I said, that's really expensive. I don't think we'll be able to get that. And he said, well, that's why I'm asking Santa for it so that you don't have to buy it. And I was like, oh, geez, like, how do I field this? Right. And actually, a tip that I heard a while back that's been really helpful too is to give the bigger gifts from the parents and give the smaller gifts from Santa. Because when the kids go back to school and they're like, "Oh, Santa got me, a PlayStation, or Santa got me tickets to Disneyland," and it's like, "Oh, well, Santa didn't get me that, right?" Like it's
Yeah. So what my wife does, she's got sort of like three categories. What does one want? What does one need? And a book. And so we create that list and then we share it with some of our closer family members. And that's sort of our list. So it's not like a whole list of just wants and toys and yeah.
Sure. And how do we talk to kids about this, right? And
Yeah.
how do we talk to them after when they're disappointed that they didn't get what was on their list, right? And their list was 27 items,
Yeah.
and they thought that if they wrote Santa a nice letter, they would
They'll
get
get
all of
it.
those things, right? And so this can be a challenging time. And it's like, no, we're supposed to be grateful and we're supposed to be happy. But that's not always the case, right? And being able to
Exactly.
help kids and adults with their expectations, with their disappointments. I call those, and it's not mine. I got this from a book, but I like to call those emotional projects, right? So
Yeah.
my emotional project or my son's emotional project is going to be like dealing with disappointment. But your
Yeah.
emotional project, if you're alone this year, might be like coping with loneliness, right? And finding ways, healthy ways to cope with that loneliness.
When you talk about those emotional projects, a thought of communication again came up. Communication and this is that lesson perhaps on emotion regulation. Santa may not be able to get you that, or mom and dad may not be able to get you that. Right. So are there other things that we might be able to purchase for Christmas if you celebrate it? Are there other things that we can ask for and preparing that ahead of time so that on the day of there's no significant disappointment and you just sort of prime the kids to mentally prepare for that.
And to know that kids will be okay, right? Because
Yes.
sometimes the pressure on parents
Yes.
and you can feel like I'm a failure, like I haven't been able to get my kids what they wanted, like and take it really personal. And so then you might end
Yeah.
up avoiding that conversation, right? Because it brings up your own
Yeah.
really negative feelings. But I think if you can talk to your kids and let them know, hey, I love you, I care about you, and we're not able to get that this year, right?
Yeah.
And that's the reality. And we can still have really close connections. Actually, can bring people closer together. It can bring you closer with your kids
Yeah.
than not avoiding it.
The history of this holiday is actually really interesting. I remember, I think it was on TV Ontario here in this province. They had this series looking back at the different decades of how Christmas or the holidays were celebrated. And back then, it wasn't about gifts, man. Like, it was about connecting as family and coming together and just socializing. And it's just so much more about consumerism. And perhaps, again, thinking about your family, what your family values are, maybe it's time to pull back a little bit, right? And de-emphasize all the goods and materials. And maybe in the long run, this is actually a good lesson for the kids that, maybe we derive a bit of joy and excitement from toys and the things that we get. But when we talk about mental health and how to stay healthy, even when we don't get certain things, can we still find joy in connecting with others?
Yeah, and we're talking about kids, but I can think, you know, a lot of recent conversations at my office about relationships, right? New relationships. It's the first Christmas or the first holiday season, and it's like, I don't think I can afford what they would want, and like, what is that going to mean? Like, it's very stressful, right? Does this mean like especially a lot of times for men or young boys, right? Like, it's like I should be able to buy the expensive thing, and again, marketing is brilliant, and consumerism, there's tons of like pressures and societal expectations that are all around us that we might not have been told directly, but it influences how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about our relationships.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's why I really do think, like in my family anyway, like between my wife and I, we will tell each other, like, don't worry about so much about the gift. And I do think there's a lot of truth and seriousness to that. I value our relationship more than gifts. I think, yeah, our oh, what was that episode we did on
It was boundaries, I think.
boundaries,
Yeah.
attachment,
Oh yeah,
or love
attachment.
language, love
Yeah,
language,
there we go. There we go. Yeah. Both
right?
of those. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like gift giving to me is like down on the list.
Yeah. But if
So,
you're in a relationship with someone who it's high on the list, or your family, the family maybe that your partner or partners are from, right? That gifts are a big part of it, you know,
yep.
because some, like even at our workplace, we talked about this before, but like we'll just say no gifts this year. And that, half the people are relieved. They're like, oh, thank goodness. Like that is so stressful. I don't even really like getting gifts that much. But for other people, they're really disappointed because that's the really fun part of this time of
Yes.
year. So knowing that people come at this from different love languages, and gift giving is definitely one of the five love languages. So this time of year, you'll have to address that. You'll have to confront it, or find ways to be comfortable with however you're going to navigate it.
Yep. So my takeaway from today, Dave, is first of all, communicate. Communicate, prepare with your loved ones. And if nothing else, it's like, let's keep expectations low. Right? If we keep expectations low, fewer things can at least be perceived as going wrong.
Yeah, but be careful if you just say, "Oh, this isn't that important," or like, "I don't really care about it," but really you do care about it. And then the feelings that come with that later on, that those kind of like there's a delay in that
Yes.
resentment and frustration and disappointment. So be honest with yourself, right? Again,
Yes.
that magic wand experiment, you can kind of get a really clear picture of what's important to you and what's stressful or hard for
Yep.
you.
So I
Um,
guess for me, when I say keep expectations low, it's like, okay, yes, you may have a party to go to, but let's not put this party up on a pedestal. Like everything's going to go the way you want it to go. So if we keep those particular expectations lower, then perhaps, we'll find fewer faults in other people or in the situation or the environment.
Yeah, the way I hear that is like be open to things not being
Yes.
perfect, right? That
Yes.
you can have the best plans, and it's things are going to happen. And
Yep.
if you can build that in to your expectations, then you can navigate it a little bit better.
Yep.
I
Yep.
also think, I know we're getting to the end here, but one of the points that I wanted to bring up is that our whole everywhere around us, the way our brain works is we associate things, we connect, we
Yep.
pair things together from such a young age. And so we can have positive associations and negative associations, right?
Yep.
So, and this, the same stimulus can have a different association for different people. And I think about this so much at this time of year because you know, the let's say the word Santa, right? For some people, that is a brings up all these warm feelings and amazing memories, and it's connected, it's associated with positive experiences. And for other people, it can have a negative association. And so don't assume, right? And look around the room, and some people might be, having a great time and really connecting to what's happening, and other people it brings up a lot of negative feelings, whether they're from childhood experiences or just, something that
Yeah.
happened last year. So just being open to that and being open to yourself too, to kind of maybe get
Yeah.
curious about those connections, those associations to this time of year.
Yeah. Curious and compassionate, right? Everybody comes from a different story, a different history. So, be curious, be compassionate and patient. It's not the easiest time of the year for many people.
And so my takeaway then would be, create new associations, like be intentional about it, create
Yeah.
new traditions, look at like, what do you want to hold on to? What do you want to keep? And what do you want to maybe add or do differently this year? So yeah,
All right. And on that note, wish everybody restful and safe holiday season. And, if you're enjoying this podcast as usual, subscribe, like, follow, leave us comments, questions. They're always appreciated. And we will continue releasing into the new year. We're excited. And, I know Dave and I are going to talk about perhaps how this podcast will continue to evolve. And yeah, really excited.
yeah, we're thinking of taking good care 2.0. So what are we going to keep and what are we going to change? So give us your feedback. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. And yeah, we're going to keep doing this. So hopefully we can keep improving and keep moving forward with it.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.